Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Austin B Media Podcast. I'm your host, Austin Belzer. Today, we're celebrating the 45th anniversary of the sci-fi horror masterpiece Alien. Jack Martin, editor-in-chief of Film Feeder, is joining me today to discuss Alien. So, Jack, welcome back to the podcast.
Oh, well, thank you very much for having me back. I enjoyed our previous conversation about the holdovers and can't miss up an opportunity to talk about this classic. So, yeah, I'm happy to get right into it.
Yeah, but before we get into it, as always, is there any recommendation you want to put out there for a movie, TV show, music, album, anything like that?
Well, yes, in fact, there is, I'm sure as a lot of people have, at least in the United Kingdom, I just binged the new Netflix miniseries Baby Reindeer. And
I've been
I
hearing
don't,
a lot about that. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, it's a seven, so it's a seven-part miniseries. So there's only seven episodes, and it's based on the real life experiences of Richard Gadd, who's a performer and a comedian, and basically it's about him dealing with a deranged stalker that makes his just life just an absolute living hell, and it's quite harrowing in the beginning. It's quite disturbing the relationship they have with each other, but then as the series goes on, you learn more about this guy's past and kind of the rather traumatic stuff that he's been through and how that contributes to his own self-sabotage. And by the end, honestly, I was just bawling. It takes a lot for any kind of media to really move me to the point of tears. And this one, by episode seven, I was just holding back tears, man. It's emotional. It's very dark comedy. But I do recommend it. So that's Baby Reindeer, which is now on Netflix, and yeah, and shout out as well because the first four episodes are actually directed by Veronica Tofiski. I hope I got the name right. But for those who don't know who she is also the co-writer for Rose Glass's most recent film, Love Lies Bleeding, which
Oh,
is I think still out in American cinemas. It's coming out in the UK here next week in on the 3rd of May. But so that's kind of cool. So yeah, no, that's my recommendation, Baby Reindeer.
awesome. I'll have to check it out. You're probably the fourth or fifth person that's talked about it, either on Threads or wherever this week. So
Yeah.
apparently that's a sign of the universe that I need to see this
Oh yeah,
docu
this is like
series.
yeah, this is a real word of mouth series. So yeah, it's a mini series, only seven episodes. They're all streaming on Netflix, and yeah, no, I heard a lot about it as well, and I just thought, you know what, I'll give it a go, and then ended up streaming it over a day or two. So
Awesome.
it's quite something. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be sure to make it out. Seven episodes is good for a mini series for me, especially if they're
Oh
like 30 minutes. But
yeah, they're about 30. I think the longest one is like 40 something minutes, but that's honestly nothing compared to most other things.
yeah, I can't do a docu series if each like each of the seven episodes is like an hour. I don't know what it is.
Oh yeah, no, they can get insane.
Yeah. But before we get too deep into docu series, I want to talk about Alien now. So yeah, I guess let's start with the most obvious question. What's your earliest memory of Alien? Was it the first time you saw it or something else?
Okay, so the first thing I remember of Alien, as I'm sure is with a lot of people, honestly, is the poster. Yeah, like, it's a very iconic image, that green egg out in space, that tagline in space, no one can hear you scream. I remember like being like about 9 or 10 years old, and I saw that poster, and it's just like, wow, that's a really creepy image. I wonder what that movie is all about. And it wasn't until much later that I first saw it. I think I was about to start uni or college, and I remember being very impressed by how kind of like slow burn it is. Honestly, like
Yeah.
I know there are different versions of this. I know I think there's a director's cut out there
Hmm.
somewhere. So, and the version I watched in preparation for this, I'm not sure if it was the director's cut or the original version. Either way, it's the version that's currently on Disney Plus here in the UK. But watching it again just now, I remember thinking like, wow, there's a lot to really admire about how deeply detailed a lot of it is, and you don't really pick that up when you're a younger viewer, like I was when I first saw it. But I remember being very creeped out by it. It was, I think I got it on like a box of the Alien box set, and just watched all of them here and there. And then all of them, I was most impressed by this first one, which, I think is the same with a lot of people.
Yeah, and I mean, going back to your poster, I mean, you've got it in the bottom left of your Zoom background. So, I mean,
Yeah,
I feel like,
there it
uh,
is.
yeah, uh, so, but yeah, it's interesting. I think the most potent memory I have of Alien is, and I'll probably get hate online for this, um, is I used to fall asleep to the opening credits. Like when
Okay.
I'd get really tired, you can just put on the opening credits of that, and you'll fall asleep like that.
Now, to be fair, I think Jerry Goldsmith's score that plays over those opening credits is quite soothing,
Yeah,
albeit in a very disarming kind of way. But I think, yeah, there's something quite peaceful about Jerry Goldsmith's work on this. So, yeah, I completely see what you're getting at. Like, I think there's a very lullaby kind of quality to it, which is weird to say about a very violent sci-fi horror film.
yeah, because you know it, it was interesting because I put it on like 4 or 5 times, and one day I just sat down with the whole Alien anthology, which is I think what the box set's called. I was like,
Hmm.
no, I'm gonna watch all of them. Which interestingly enough, when I watched Aliens, there was like a I think there was like a transfer error where like the picture was. I'll have to dig through my photos and maybe I'll pop it up after I edit this. But I took a photo where there's like blue and red lines on certain parts of the image.
Really? Did you watch it on DVD or Blu-ray or
Blu-ray.
online? Oh, Blu-ray. Maybe it's yeah, maybe like you said, maybe it's a transfer thing. I can't speak to the Blu-ray or even the one that you had, but I've heard that quite a lot. There's a lot of 4K transfers which don't end up looking all that great. I think there's one with I can't remember if it was like Total Recall or The
Blue
Abyss,
eyes.
where apparently the upscale quality, it looks like AI generated, and it's caused a bit of a backlash by some people. So I think there's a lot of stuff to look out for with that. And I know how James Cameron is always about fine tuning his films many years after they come out. So that wouldn't surprise me if he did the same with, or tried to do the same anyway with Aliens, and it didn't quite work.
Yeah, I think it was True Lies. That was the one that everyone was up in arms about with like the smoothing on the skin. Yeah.
I think it might. No, I think it might have been Terminator 2. Now I think about it. It
Oh,
was a James Cameron movie. It was either Terminator 2 or The Abyss. I can't remember which one specifically, but there was a bit of an uproar about it.
yeah. Because yeah, because the a lot of James Cameron films just got re-released recently. For those who don't know, like Aliens, The Abyss, Titanic, a bunch of ones from Disney. Um, I think even Avatar: The Way of Water got a new release with new stuff added. So yeah, but um, but I watched the for those who wondered, um, I usually watch I believe it's called the special no director's cut. I usually watch the director's cut, but today I watched the theatrical one because we're talking about that one. The director's cut came out in 2003, I think, and
Hmm.
Alien came out in 1979. So I'm like, well, if I'm gonna rewatch it for the podcast, just watch the theatrical cut. Just hit play on Apple TV. But yeah, I guess that brings me to kind of the legacy of Alien, which is kind of why we're here.
Hmm.
Every time I watch Alien, it's still as terrifying as the first time I've watched it. So I guess the next point of discussion or the next question would be what makes a film like this Alien so terrifying after, 45 years? This was released in 1979. So, um, yeah, yeah, what makes it so terrifying after so long, and what aspects still surprise you after however many viewings?
Well, I think that there's a lot to kind of think about. I mean, I think first you got to kind of like put yourself in the shoes of people who saw it in 1979. I mean, keep in mind this is like 2 years after Star Wars comes out, which is like it was a real film in terms of sci-fi filmmaking and storytelling, and then only a handful of years later for something like this to go on and can really kind of go the horror movie route. It is a slasher movie in space,
Yeah,
which is pretty much what it always has been. But to really kind of go from Star Wars, which is all about exploring all this quite far-reaching and quite fascinating galaxy, to just showing the most terrifying creatures out there and imaginable that are capable of just inhumane things. I think it was a very significant shift in like all this space stuff can be really cool, but then also it can actually be really terrifying. The unknown. Like it really kind of puts you in the mindset of these they're basically truckers. Like they're truckers in space aboard the good ship Nostromo, and they are encountering something very unfamiliar. They are encountering something that they have no knowledge of. They don't know what it's capable of. They don't even know its name. Like it's not even referred to as a xenomorph in the film until I think it got that name in Aliens. But
yeah,
then the name in and of itself, xenomorph, that comes from the word xenophobia, which obviously is the fear of like foreign entities. And I think that there's talking about how it kind of is still terrifying 45 years later. I think that there's a notion that there is still a fear of the unknown, a fear of not understanding other things beyond our own cultures and ways of life. And I think it's an interesting kind of thing to think about when in terms of like today's politics, which are increasingly xenophobic. In the UK, as of recording this, there's just been a bill that's been signed into law that's going to deport some migrants to Rwanda, which has been a huge issue over here. But and that's kind of what it leads to, is that kind of xenophobic fear of the unknown, and that's what something like Alien really plays off of. It's just that fear of not knowing what else is out there beyond our own mere selves.
yeah. I think that's probably a better explanation of than I could probably muster up. I was just gonna say because it like just looks cool. Um, because I think it kind of pioneered that, or even evolved on, and I talk about this a lot whenever I review a horror movie, about the creature behind the corner. You don't know what's around because the Nostromo is, just so laden in black. You can't see anything. To the point where, and you really don't even see the monster all that much, the xenomorph all that much in this film,
No,
except
no.
for
They,
like,
they, they keep it very hidden until like the last few moments of the film, really.
yeah, and even then it's happening in strobe lights.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, I think that's kind of where I would talk about it being terrifying after 45 years. Is I think the human mind just has a natural inclination to not, if it doesn't know things, um, especially like a threat. I think it perceives like, oh, I better be on all alert, on full alert, because something's around the corner and I don't know what it is. And thank you, macOS, for that reaction. Apparently, that I forgot to
Yeah,
turn
I
off.
approve. I approve this.
uh,
No, I think that's a very good observation. I mean, there is something quite chilling about how the whole movie looks, because most of it is set on the ship, which is made up of long, really kind of dingy corridors, and there's a like loads of cords just flanging all over the place, and there's dripping water in some areas. It's a very untidy ship, and like you said again, it's that kind of like unpolished, very lived in kind of atmosphere. Again, very much like the original Star Wars, which takes place in this very kind of grungy area of the galaxy, really. And then by contrast to all the very polished and very lifeless stuff that the Empire in Star Wars does, but in Alien, that's where we spend all our time on it. Even on the planet that they visit at the beginning, it's made out in dark. You can't really see what's going on because there's all sorts of like storms and wind and rain getting in their way, and even like the glimpses of the ship, the big horseshoe ship. They're very it's mainly shown in like the grainy like cameras that they have, and even then, it's a sense of unease, even when something's right in front of you. I always find that fascinating.
Yeah, one second. But yeah, that's a good point. Talking about the graininess. And, well, I don't want to talk about that because that's a spoiler for a video game. But maybe we'll talk about that later. Actually, I guess we can talk about it a little bit because that kind of goes right into what I'm what we're kind of already talking about with the atmosphere. There was a video game that came out in 2015. I don't know if people have played it. That takes place after this, Alien Isolation, about 15 years after this, with
Okay.
Ripley's daughter.
Oh, okay.
I just wanted to ask if you've played it at all
Uh,
because it's a very
uh,
similar atmosphere in the game.
Actually, no, I haven't played it. I definitely have heard of it. I know that there's a bunch of there's a handful of video games about it.
Hmm.
AC Alien Isolation, like you said. I think there was one that was like based on the Marine Corps from Aliens.
Yeah,
Was that the one? I know there's a lot, and I think that one is particularly despised. Or am I
yeah,
think am I? It is right. Yeah, I knew that one existed. I had heard about Isolation, but yeah, I'm not really. It's probably Mario, but and I know that it's kind. I know that the impact of the film initially is spawned this entire franchise. Like all these sequels, and like there's even a television show currently in development,
yeah.
and the video games, like you said, all the merchandise, all that stuff. And I think very few of them, from what I've seen anyway, really kind of captures the ironically the isolation of that first film. Because it is just this handful of characters, from Sigourney Weaver to Tom Skerritt and all the way to Harry Dean Stanton, and because there's no one else literally that and the alien as well, of course, but yeah, no, there's a very dangerous kind of creepy sense that they are kind of alone in the galaxy just with this deadly creature. And I think a lot of them have just kind of like gone big or too big or too philosophical, or in the case of Alien Resurrection, too ridiculous. So I mean, I don't know. I don't know if we're going to touch upon the sequels at all in this episode, but I think like a lot of the ones I've seen, again, I don't know anything about the games, but
Okay,
I know that there's some that try to replicate what the first one did and didn't exactly work.
yeah. So then I guess the reason I ask is it feels very similar. Um, but then I guess shifting uh back to the movie, but I do recommend Alien Isolation. I've played it twice. Um, I've literally once got a heart rate little notification once that says that your heart rate's too high because I was playing Alien Isolation and got caught by the Xenomorph.
Oh my God.
But going back to the film, um,
Mhm.
um, how do you think Ridley Scott's vision shaped the Alien film we got versus the other Alien films? Yeah,
Well, yeah, I mean, because again, like all the Alien films, they've got their own distinct visual style, for better or worse. And then you have the first film, which is obviously Ridley Scott, and memory is failing me, but I can't remember if this is like one. It's definitely one of his first films. I can't remember if it was
hmm,
his. No, it can't have been his first. Or at the very least one of his. This is early career Ridley Scott anyway. It was obviously before Blade Runner or
yeah,
anything like that. But I think it's interesting what he does here because I know that this film wasn't made for a whole lot. I think for at the time it was made on a pretty low budget. But and I think what he did is kind of really kind of made the most of that. He really kind of made all these corridors and bright areas like little dining rooms and whatever. He kind of stand out. He really made them characters in them of themselves, which is, as cliche as that is to say, I think there is truth in that here because obviously there wasn't a whole lot of money involved to really kind of expand on it more than it had to be. So I think that there's a lot that Ridley Scott does in just kind of creating the general atmosphere. Like the opening scene, for instance, is a good example because all it is just we're just going around the ship. Nothing's really happening. We're just kind of like it's just us there. He's taking us on this little tour of all the areas that we're going to before, the pods open and they all just kind of like wake up and get reacquainted with one another. And I think ironically, it's a very world building film in just a singular location. Like I
Yeah.
think it really kind of goes out of its way to make the sets stand out more than they would have, had it not been under the watch of a very graceful director.
Yeah, so I guess let's talk about that design language. What did you, maybe this might be a redundant question, but what did you think of the film's design language, like the biomechanical design of the xenomorph, the Nostromo itself being rooted very much, I feel like, in sort of that retrofuturism vibe?
Yeah, no, I think there's a lot about the designs. Yeah, again, they are very grungy. They are very kind of it's odd because like they obviously you have the alien first of all, obviously designed by the late H.R. Geiger,
Mhm.
and that design in and of itself is very unique. It's not like the little green man, with the big eyes and stuff. No, this is a very unique design, with the coned head and the tongue that just kind of comes out of the mouth, and it's a striking design because this thing doesn't even have eyes. You don't even
Yeah.
know how it sees, let alone does everything else. So I think there's so much to it that's extremely fascinating. That's not intentionally not drawn too much upon because obviously that's all down to the mystery, but the design language again it goes back to that fear of a fear of the unknown. Like there is so much to not just the alien, but like the design of the ship itself, which is kind of like bulky and very, oddly enough, very 70s. Like you get a lot of the, you see like characters just having very 70s haircuts and ways of talking, or even the technology in and of itself is very like a 70s version of what like 100 years from then technology would be. So I think it's kind of it's a mixture of then and way in the future, and I think that's kind of I guess it brings it down to like a relatability factor because I think a lot of people in 1979 saw all these designs and kind of like related it back to how things were in their period. Like, and I think that makes it easier to relate to some of the characters and really kind of feel bad for them when they get what's coming to them.
But let's talk about those characters really quick. Obviously, we have to talk
Mhm.
about Ripley. Um,
Yeah.
what do you think makes her such a good protagonist that people are still quoting her, 45 years
Mhm.
in the future?
Essentially, because I think it's really in Aliens, the next film,
Fair.
the James Cameron, that's the one that I think really kind of turned Ripley into this like 80s action heroine icon. Like, she even got nominated for an Oscar for that film that year. And but in this film, Alien, it's interesting because it's more of an ensemble film. Like, it's not. I mean, she's not even the top billed person in the cast. I think that's Tom Skerritt.
Yeah.
But and I think there's it has more of a vibe of a slasher movie. Like she is the final girl. Ripley is the final girl in Alien, and but throughout, even before like all the carnage happens, like she is kind of pretty much the only one who sees common sense out of all of them. Like when Kane is, when they bring Kane back to the ship, after he's been attacked by the face hugger, and she's the only one that says, actually, this isn't a good idea. We need to we don't want to risk whatever it is coming on board and thing. And she is fiercely committed to that, even after Dallas, tells her, you got to open the door, we've got to save his life. It's just like, no. And the only reason that anything happens in this film at all is because Ash is the one that opens it up, the snivelly little bastard. But I think, but it really speaks to Ripley's character that she is so she's by the book, but in a way that kind of makes her like genuinely interesting. Like again, it's more you get that a lot more in Aliens than you do in Alien, but I think this one definitely lays the groundwork for what Ripley will become, and it does so in a way that you really are rooting for her, and especially in those final scenes where she's just racing through the ship and trying to get the cat and avoiding the alien on their way. And I think it's a very fierce performance by Sigourney Weaver. It always is when she plays this part, but I think that there's something in here that's a lot more vulnerable, and that makes it more terrifying. Because I mean, at that time, I mean, we all know that she survives now because obviously she's in the other films, but back then, there was no way of telling, like, maybe no one makes it out of this alive. Maybe this is just like this is it for all of them. But Ripley being the one to make it out alive is good because she is the most resilient one. She is the one that speaks the most sense, and she has the qualities of a leader. And I think a lot of people really look up to that. They really kind of see her not as any kind of female character in any way, but they just see her as just a genuine hero, like someone who does the right thing because it is the right thing, not because she has like an ego or something telling her otherwise, but she does it because she wants to help and she wants to kill these aliens. And yeah, just really kind of yeah, I think that those are all admirable qualities that a lot of people see in her.
Yeah, I mean, she's the one who talks to Ash and all the other crew members and says, "Hey, what are we doing here? Why are
Mhm.
we allowing this thing that we don't know its capabilities of that has shot acid through three decks of the ship?"
Mhm.
And has a direct conversation with Ash and says, "Hey, why did you open that door?"
Right.
All right, so talk um really let's talk about the franchise, right? Because
Mhm.
45 years is a long time to have a franchise, Not, you know, talking about your Alien and Aliens um timeline, there's 20 I think 20 years between sequel. And I think some important background info is this movie is getting released in theaters for the first time since Disney bought Fox. So I guess let's talk about the question I think that's on a lot of people's minds of why it's important to re-release movies like this. We're getting Spider-Man 2 this week, which I'll have a podcast recording of very, very soon. Yeah, why is it important to re-release classic movies like this?
Oh yeah, there's. I mean, let's use Spider-Man 2 as an example because I'm sure you remember seeing that film back then, as do I. Yeah, I think there's something so special about the cinema experience when you're seeing films that were only at one point ever meant to be seen in the cinema. This is before like home video came along and streaming and stuff. So literally cinema was the only place you could see all these things. And I think that there's so much to gain from seeing films like Alien with a crowd, especially people who haven't seen it for the first time, who are seeing it for the first time even. It's that sense of, it's a sense of atmosphere that can't exactly be replicated at home. Like that one specific moment that's sticking out in my mind. It's when they're going in to check on Kane, after the face hugger has just kind of leapt off and has just gone into hiding. There's a shot where it's just kind of low on the ground, and it stays on the shot for a couple of minutes. But it's all the people, Dallas and Ripley and everyone just kind of like going around very slowly. It's a very quiet scene, and then I think something falls over, and then that disrupts the tension or whatever. I remember because I saw this in the cinema a few years ago. I think they re-released it around Alien Day then. I remember seeing that, and the reactions that I had that were had with all the rest of the audience, some of whom had seen it before, some of who hadn't. It was quite a terrifying moment, because it's a moment that's just filled with tension. And when it's in surround sound on a big screen, you don't know what's going to happen unless you've seen the movie already. Then there's a real thrill to be had with just uh giving the reactions that the film wants you to have. Like, because I saw it for this podcast, I saw it at home, and which is fine, but
Same.
you don't have that kind of like secluded nature, I guess. Yeah, like it sounds weird to say, but like I think there's something about seeing it in a dark room with other people that really makes it worthwhile. And I think obviously I think everyone should be given a chance to see any film on the big screen, regardless of its quality or origin, even if it's like a Netflix release. I do think that every film that's made uh, does deserve a big screen treatment in some way, because ultimately that's what films are made for. They're not necessarily made for computer screens or smart TVs. They are made for the cinema. And I think really the fact that they are giving films like Alien and Spider-Man 2 like big re-releases in the cinema really does speak to the power of that cinema experience, that people just want to go out, have a good time, see a film that they may be familiar with or experiencing for the first time, and just kind of like generate that kind of sense that it once was in 1979, where they're just in a cinema watching all this stuff happen. And it can just be magical. It can just be a real magical experience that I think everyone should experience at least once in their life.
Yeah, for me, I think it would be a threefold answer. For me, the most important thing is I think reactions again.
I also agree.
But yeah, I think it's threefold. It's first one is, the picture quality is going to be a lot better since it's shot on film. Now, I liked seeing it on my shiny 4K monitor. It's a nice experience, but I'm also distracted by other things. I've got two screens, so I can look at the other screen and do other things on it
Mm.
while I'm watching a movie, which I'm, guilty of. Sorry, for those Puritans out there that are like, don't do anything else while you're watching a movie. Sometimes my ADHD has me doing other things.
Yeah, no, I think as well. Yeah, when you are at home, there is the extra urge to just kind of like check your phone during the film, like
Hmm.
check on emails or see what's happening on Twitter or whatever. But like, I think in the cinema, there's more of an etiquette. Like,
Yeah.
you're expected to follow rules a bit more, and therefore your attention is just fully on the screen. Whereas at home, it could be a bit more flexible. And I think people might miss particular aspects because they're busy on their phone or whatever.
Yeah, which I kind of brings me down to that second one is which is the audience experience. You might get different reactions. Like I still remember the guy who bought out an entire row for Avengers Infinity War at the local Alamo Draft House, which those who have been to Alamo Draft House, that is not cheap. Like,
Wow,
and it,
that's impressive. I'm not gonna lie.
I don't, I don't think the theater was 20 seats per row, but it was pretty close. So, and that's
Hmm.
$15 a pop. So yeah, like dude bought out the entire row. But that's the kind of stories you get when you see something in a movie theater. And
I
then
mean, as well, yeah, as well. Like, there's that recent story, like someone was going out to see Dune Part Two, like
Mhm.
10 times, and I think even Legendary reached out to him and just like gave him some free stuff, which is again, if you do that in the cinema, go out and do that in the cinema, that's one thing. But when you sit at home rewatching the same film again, it's just like, yeah, you got to get your priorities in order, But that's again, that's something that only the cinema experience can provide.
And he's doing it again for Challenge. I saw he tweeted round
Nice.
one IMAX for Challengers. I can't.
As someone who just watched Challengers and just uploaded a review for it, I was just like, what a good film to do the next movie marathon on.
Yeah, and as for the Dune part of it, I can confirm I've seen it at home. Still slaps at home, but uh, not having the IMAX ratio is a killer for me. I don't know why that decision was made, but I'll say more about that in my review, which I'll have up for the Blu-ray release. But I think the third thing is kind of just uh not perseverance, but preservation is the word I'm looking for. The more times something can be shown in theaters, even if it's like once a year, like on Alien Day, April 26th, which is when the 45th anniversary of Alien is, I believe. They might have contrived that. I don't remember the exact release date off the top of my head, but
Yeah, it is usually around that particular date, and I'm not entirely sure. Was that the original release date? I never
I
really
don't
understood why April 26th. I don't know if it's significant. I mean, anyone
LV
listening, feel
426
free to maybe or
because I
is in
think
reference to because I'm sure we'll love to find out.
yeah, I think it's reference to planet LV 426, which is the planet they visit for the Xenomorph. So it might just
Hmm.
be that. Man, I'm a nerd. But yeah, the more times people can see it in theaters, like with this re-release, I think the more it kind of just stays in the culture, I guess, is the as I'm sure will happen this week. You're starting to see more talk about Alien now that they're gearing up for the 45th anniversary, and now people are talking about it again after 4 or 5 years of it not being able to be seen in theaters because of some rules Disney made about 20th Century Fox movies being screened or
Mhm.
re-released. Yeah, that those are my three reasons, and I think also Alien Romulus is coming out. I think this year.
Yeah, it's meant to be coming out this August, I believe. She'll be I mean, I guess maybe that ties into the fact that yeah, this has been like a franchise now for a number of years. So, like you said, starting in '79 and then going on to Aliens, the James Cameron one, and then Alien 3, and then Alien Resurrection. And then there was like a bit of a lull, and then Prometheus and Alien Covenant, both again by Ridley Scott, and
Mhm.
then kind of downtime, and there was talk about a TV series, which I think is now happening, and then obviously Alien Romulus, which is going to be directed by Fede Alvarez, who did Don't Breathe and that girl with the dragon tattoo sequel. I can't remember the bad one. So oh yeah, he did the Evil Dead reboot from 2013 as well.
That's right. But yeah, I guess that kind of answers my question about how this film compares to the spinoffs.
Well, I mean that's an easy question right there. There is no comparing. The original is better in this case because and it's the same with I can say the same with all the Jurassic Park movies and the Terminator films and just like no matter what they try and do to kind of like spice up the formula, you can't outdo the original. I mean, I think that's one of the problems that a lot of the Alien sequels have kind of fallen into is that they just try to just do the same thing but slightly different, because like Aliens is a good sequel. I will give it that. Of the sequels, it's probably the strongest one.
Oh,
I
yeah,
mean,
sure.
I've never liked it more than the original Alien, though. But I mean, when you compare it to Alien 3, which honestly, I know there's a lot of yeah, a bit of a mixture towards it. I know David Fincher hates that film, and he worked on it as his film debut. And then, honestly, Alien Resurrection, I just couldn't do. Like, I barely got through it. It's the Batman and Robin of the Alien franchise.
Yeah.
Yeah, in so many ways. And then I remember when like Prometheus was coming out. I remember there was a lot of hype towards it. Like, this is Ridley Scott returning to the world of Alien, and going to answer some questions that were raised in that first film. And then the film comes out, and a lot of people are very disappointed by it. They would have preferred that, so, a lot of the stuff was kept a secret. And honestly, having rewatched the first film just now, I kind of agree because when they do visit that big horseshoe ship in the film, and they come across that giant like statue with the weird like elephant kind of nose and stuff.
Hmm.
Because so much of that is explained in Prometheus, and thinking back on it, it is really kind of dumb how it all kind of ties together. And
Yeah.
I kind of I prefer it just when it's just things are just left unexplained. Some things don't necessarily need a whole film to explain what Prometheus, and then Alien Covenant I don't really remember much about, so just kind of goes to show how memorable that was. Yeah, I think overall I think Alien is the superior one. There's no topping it in my opinion. Even Aliens, which I think is good, but never better than the original.
Yeah, I have to agree. Although I do remember a lot about Alien Covenant because of how much I hated it. Like,
Yeah, I know a lot of people that dislike that movie heavily as well. Like, shout out to Matthew Buck, who some listeners might know as Film Break. He did a whole episode on Prometheus and how it really is it really does fail the entire franchise and stuff. It's a great watch. So if anyone does ever want to see that, I'm sure it's available on YouTube somewhere. But he really disliked that, and also I don't think he was too keen on Alien Covenant either. And again, I don't really remember it. I remember it being dumb, but like kind of like, oh, whatever, I'm gonna forget about it in a few weeks, and I did. So I'm, and then obviously you have Alien Romulus coming out, which they've only just released a trailer for it, a very brief trailer. And it's interesting because obviously apparently it's not in the same continuity as the Prometheus Alien Covenant timeline, but it looks more like it's doing like a back to basics kind of alien style thing. And I don't know how it's going to turn out. It might just be a copy of the first film again, but I hope not, because I mean there's got to be a reason why they've greenlisted other than just franchise recognition. But I do like Fede Alvarez for the most part. I do like his stuff. I mean, I think Don't Breathe was a very effective horror. I think that the good cast members. Kaylee Spaney's are going to be in it. Is Isabella Merced. And I think that there's promise with it. I don't know how it's going to tell. It could be another Covenant. It could be another Prometheus. Who knows? We won't find out until August. But and then again, there's the TV series that's currently being shot. I think it might be in post production now.
yeah,
But I think that's going to be coming to wherever it's going to be shown in the future. I
FX, I
think when
believe.
FX, yeah, I didn't see. I didn't know if FX was being folded because of the Disney merger. So it no, it is okay. All right, so that kind of makes sense. So yeah, I think it'll be on FX in the States. I don't know where it's going to end up in the UK. Probably Disney Plus.
Yeah,
I'm not sure, but that's where a lot of stuff tends to go. When it's like Hulu and big Disney owned stuff. Anyway.
yeah,
Alien TV series, that'll come out when it comes out. I don't know when, but
yeah. But yeah, I think I'm really excited for Alien Romulus. Because I it reminds me so much of Alien Isolation, which is why I included a question about it because I'm like, there are shots where I'm like, oh, I have played that mission in Alien Isolation. I know exactly what's going on here. To the point where I have some theories, which maybe I'll go into in a patron only post or something like that, because there's some things where I think, anyways, um, that it could connect to Alien Isolation. But that might just be me drawing pins in a dartboard that doesn't exist. And then, obviously, I'm excited for it because of Fede Alvarez. He got me into horror, like modern horror, because I'd watched The Strangers, which is getting a prequel this year, called
hmm,
Chapter One, which I plan to review all the entries this year, and
sweet.
then yeah, I saw Don't Breathe, and that was um really cool for me. Saw it in theater,
Hmm.
and then Noah Hawley. I've seen some of Legion, which is his other FX show. So I'm really excited for that. I forget what it is about. I just know it's like the earliest in the Alien timeline that you can go, even before Prometheus. Um, so yeah, I'll be interested to see that. But let's get back to Alien proper. Let's talk little bit of spoilers. So, if for some reason you're listening to this and you've not seen this 45-year-old movie, it's okay. Just come on back. We'll still be here in your podcast player
Yep,
of choice, or YouTube if you prefer to do it that way. But you've been warned. Let's talk spoilers.
let's get
So
into it.
I think the biggest thing is that I want to talk about is theories about the origins of the distress call, the derelict spacecraft. You got any theories?
Oh, it's interesting because the fact this whole thing kicks off because of that stress call, and it turns out to be a warning. But I think there's a lot of theories you can place with it. Maybe it's like a one of those delayed calls, from the one of the crew in Prometheus, or even at a stretch Covenant. But I don't know, that somehow feel that's unlikely. Again, I don't. I'm not you. I don't know that much about the alien lore. I'm just kind of freewheeling off the top of my head, but I think. I don't know. I think there's again, like when they visit that horseshoe ship and they come across the giant thing. I think there are things that are probably left for mystery. I think there are some things absolutely necessary, but one of but odd odd place to compare it to, but in Magnolia, the film at the end, slight spoilers for those who haven't seen Magnolia. There's a climactic scene where it just starts raining frogs, like out of nowhere. It's just an absolute hailstorm of frogs. During that point, it's just one of those things that just kind of comes out of nowhere and is already kind of like what the hell's going on. But and then I look at that and just thinking like, okay, yeah, this is just something that happens. Like this is just something that happens, and this is how characters are dealing with it. And I feel that's the same with Alien. And yeah, no one, I don't think anyone particularly knows where this distress call came from, whether it's like from years in the past, or if it's like another unfortunate crew that we never got to. Maybe it's happening at the same time. You never know. Maybe it's all unfolding just before the Nostromo comes to that planet. But I don't know. I think there's a lot of theories you can take, and I'm sure there's a lot that maybe make more sense than my rambling does. But I think that I don't know. It's all up for debate. That's all I'll say about that.
Yeah, so I'll agree with your last point, and I'm of two minds about the origin of the distress signal. Because I remember Alien Covenant heavily implying um that the distress signal that happens in Alien is because Michael Fassbender's character, or Walter One, whatever name he had at the
Hmm.
end of that movie. I guess spoiler for Alien Covenant, but again, that's a 7-year-old movie, so I feel like we're the statute of limitations have gone way
Yeah,
past.
yeah. I
Um,
think again, like there's a certain like time limit. It's like if it's like a film that was just released like 2 weeks ago, yeah, that's too soon. But like, give it a few years, yeah, we can talk about it freely. So yeah, I think you're off the hook for this one.
okay, cool, but yeah, like it heavily implies that he sent the uh transmission uh, as a way to lure the Nostromo, which they don't say is the Nostromo, but again, heavily implied that, you know, David's gonna start like breeding the aliens in that little ship thing
Mm.
um, that you see at the beginning in Alien. That's my first theory.
Hmm.
Second theory, it I think lines a little bit more up with I think what Ridley Scott meant to do in Alien Covenant,
Hmm.
and I think Weyland-Yutani knew that um, before they even sent out the Nostromo, because they talk about Ash being deployed like 2 days before this mission or something like that. Um, and I think Weyland-Yutani knew and gave Ash orders like, "Hey, reroute the ship, um, so that you're on the path because you'll be like kind of parallel to the path or something like that. I don't know. I think Weyland-Yutani knew about like some kind of alien rumblings, like, hey, there's this specimen that we need to go collect, and the Nostromo can kind of get you there, Ash. And you as a Weyland-Yutani representative can go get it for us, but nobody can know you're an android until, you die.
I mean, there is that does kind of raise an interesting point. I mean, why? What would again? I don't know much about how the certain stuff about in the alien universe. I don't know how it works, but like, I mean, what would have been the use? I mean, would it have made a difference to just tell them outright, hey, I'm a robot. I have milk for blood for someone, and I think I don't know why that was necessarily kept a secret. I guess that there's some kind of like racism, I guess,
Yeah,
with robot kind. Because I know that in Aliens, Ripley's quite hostile towards Bishop at first. But I never knew if that was just like some general bigotry or whether her experiences with Ash kind of put her off robots for life. But like, I don't know. That always struck me as a little weird. But going what you said, maybe it was all planned from the beginning. They Ash would join the Nostromo and steer them towards this planet under certain orders. David is involved somehow, but I don't know. It seems like there's a lot of steps missing in
yeah,
that theory, which is some things about it in my head anyway. Maybe they make more sense in on when you actually really look at it on paper. For me, anyway, it doesn't entirely add up. Only because just because you don't exactly know how close in advance like Covenant and the first Alien take place. So it's never really I don't think it's ever really explained. Again, it's been years since I've seen Covenant, and I have no intention of rewatching it anytime soon.
mhm.
I don't think many people do. But I think I don't know. I think there's something about it that doesn't quite add up. I don't know. Maybe that's just me.
I the basis for my second theory is just Weyland-Yutani is just like that, and they'll just
Mm.
do whatever they can to get the thing that they need, as evidenced in Aliens and even more so Alien 3 and Alien Resurrect. Because I think in Aliens they basically say, "Oh, hey, we we need to murder this girl because of this," um, or something like that. New, yeah, that's like the thin paper I've written that theory on. Um, is just the 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 tendencies of Weyland-Yutani being absolute dirtbags.
How about the role that Jones the cat plays?
Jonesy, yeah. Um,
Jonesy.
I
I mean,
Go
I
ahead.
always found it weird that they had a cat on board anyway. I mean, I can't remember if it was like in the pods with them while they were sleeping, but
No.
it wasn't. So if this has taken like months, maybe even years to go. But like, how has the cat been surviving? That is okay. Like, I get the reason why they have a cat on board, so that they can literally save the cat in the last act of the movie. But yeah, that I think that's a lingering question. Just like, how did that cat survive all this time while his owners had just been sleeping all this time? I mean, yeah, I'm sure there's lots of technology that can like feed animals automatically, but at some point there's got to be a limit. Like that's either Jonesy is just a very lucky cat, or he's on his fifth life after the previous four. He just died of hunger, or maybe he's the alien the whole time.
Mm,
Ooh. That's the only explanation I can come up with how he's managed to survive all that time. Even like when he comes across when the alien, like yeah, he's in his like little protective box and stuff, but the alien doesn't even like tear into it. He just leaves him be. It's just like, hey, I recognize you. You're from planet Zorblog, right? Or is it like the same breed of cat that was on like Rick and Morty, who just like did a whole bunch of crazy stuff? I don't know.
or
The one that was voiced by Matthew Broderick.
or Lurkin from Captain Marvel.
Oh yes, that's a good one. Yeah, that actually makes sense. It actually does look like Goose from Captain
Yeah.
Marvel. I didn't think of that. That
Um,
would be actually kind of funny. But, I mean, they are technically under the same umbrella now, so yeah, it kind of makes sense. Alien meets Flurkin. So get on that, Marvel.
Yeah, I'd
Actually,
honestly watch that.
I think actually like aren't there also like Marvel comics that are like Alien?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I've seen like there is like a comic spin-off. I think it is Marvel that does them. So
Hmm?
yeah, technically Alien is in the Marvel universe. So that's kind of fun to kind of imagine up. So again, Kevin Feige, if you're listening, get on that.
Yeah. And also Santa Claus exists in the Marvel universe, so
I
yeah,
I would totally see Santa Claus like teaming up with I don't know off the top of my head, but
he's done
that
that.
would be amazing.
Um, he's like an Omega level villain, but anyway,
Oh, he's a
uh,
villain. Okay, shows you how much I know about Marvel. I just enjoy the films.
yeah,
That'll be Santa as a villain. That's actually kind of cool.
yeah, but yeah, I don't know how Jonesy survives either. My cat doesn't survive 3 days without like when we come back just screaming at us. Even though her food bowl is just full, she's, if she sees any like part of the bowl of food, it's over. She starts screaming even at like 3 in the morning.
Oh
Um,
no. Well,
so
if he can't last that long, then God knows how long Jonesy lasted until his owners woke up again.
yeah. With that said, I think we've covered everything on, but just about everything on Alien. I'm sure there's some obscure like bottom level iceberg thing that we haven't covered, or the xenomorph suit being like an actual suit that had to be worn instead of not practical effects, but like CG, or the special effects for this ship being miniatures, kind of like how Star Wars did it. I'm sure there's stuff we haven't covered, but yeah, if we covered all that, I think we'd have a 3 hour podcast on our hands. And
Oh yeah, yeah, it'd be longer than the movie.
yeah, yeah. So with that said, thank you, Jack, for joining me in discussing Alien.
Oh well, thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, no problem. And thanks to all you listeners, watchers, however you're interacting with this particular episode, for listening, for experiencing this podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a rating, and review it on your favorite podcast app if it has a review system. And if you want to hear the next episode before anyone else, patrons get early access, 48-hour early access, specifically. Um, for as little as $1 a month. I'm gonna have uh, a revamp up pretty soon, so that might go up. The price might go up a little bit, but pretty low cost. And you can follow me on social media at Austin B Media on Blue Sky, Instagram, Mastodon, and Threads. And if you're on Letterboxd, I'm on there as Austin B Movie. And if you have favorite memories with Alien, I'd love to hear them on social media or my Discord, which I'll link in the show notes, or the Patreon community chat. Where can people follow you, Jack?
Well, I am on Facebook and Twitter. Obviously, I'm at Film Feeder. Instagram, I'm Film Feeder Insta. So same on Threads. Not on Mastodon as of yet, but also on Letterboxd as just Film Feeder. I've been a bit more active on there, and I am also relaunching my own podcast. For those who don't know, I used to do a weekly show, but that proved to be quite time consuming and put me under a lot of stress. So I'm just doing it once a month now, and I'm currently editing the first episode, which will be all about my favorite film of all time, American Beauty. So I
Nice.
have, yeah, no, it's so we had a great discussion with special guest, actor and producer Max Dyke, and that will be up, I believe, around the beginning of May. I don't know exact dates as of yet, but so that'll be up very soon. And again, I'm on Patreon as well, patreon.com/filmfeeder. I'm going to be doing a lot more stuff on there. Like I'll be opening up some polls and offering some early sneak peeks at some artwork. And if you want to follow me on there, you can do it from as little as a couple of pounds a month or however much it is in dollars. Yeah, it'd be just great to have you on there and start building a film feeder community. So that's where you can find me.
All right. Thank you so much. And until the next episode, everyone,
See you soon.
see you soon.